Hi folks, welcome along to the penultimate panel at Hard Working Class Heroes 2014. This is called Scouts Honor. Like, basically the names of these panels are just... Every July, Andrew Dorwin sits down with me and discusses, let's come up with some panel ideas for Hard Working Class Heroes. And what comes first are the titles. And I always kind of say, the titles, just get rid of the titles. So just get rid of them at some stage, but the titles stay. So I look at the program, and it's 3 is the magic number, Scouts On, I go, what's that supposed to mean? So it's like that. So apologies first of all for basically what the title is. The title basically today is about 4 record label company representatives, 3 record label company representatives, and a very interesting gentleman called Willie here on the second name. These people are going to talk about record labels, publishing deals, and basically the landscape of deals right now. So basically, starting at the very, very end, it's Mark Crossingham from Universal Music Ireland. Next to him is Markel from Virgin. Then we have Willie Ryan from Limerick. And finally here, we have Fairley from Kobalt Music. Right, please give him a round of applause. This is also the first panel where I don't have a microphone, so basically you will hear people speaking louder than me, which is going to be great. So I'm really sorry if earlier on someone was complaining over here about not being able to hear what's going on. If you want to move in there, great. Otherwise, just we have loudspeakers, so hopefully that will kind of work out. Okay, so we're going to start, I suppose, with kind of the CV part of the proceedings. Start with Mark. Mark, what was your career path becoming the head, the chief kahuna, big kahuna at University of Ireland?
I'm old now, I've got to remember back that far, hold on. I really got into music, actually should really show my age. I really got into music when I was around 15 or 16 when the whole punk thing happened in London, so it was obviously a really exciting time. I really got into music then. Used to read NME from cover to cover every week. Then ended up through university. Wanted to work for a record company when I came out of university, but that competition was tough getting into record companies as it is even today. And ended up, my first job after university was selling North Soup and Hellman's mayonnaise, but don't tell anybody that. Embarrassing part of my career. So then I managed to get a job as a sales rep at Warner Brothers. That was in 1986, and I was driving around the West End of London with a car full of vinyl, supplying all the shops in the West End of London. So basically did that, moved up in the sales area, then went into international marketing, ran the international marketing department at Warner's UK, and left there after 10 years in 96, and joined Universal Music. And did various jobs in Universal Music as general manager at Iron Records, and did various commercial roles, did international again, and then got offered the job over here, and that's how I ended up here. I've been here 6 years.
How long have you been 6 years?
Been here 6 years, yeah, and I now can't understand my children and their language is appalling, so.
Okay, so Mark, what's been your role from wherever you started to Virgin represent, working with someone like Healy Marquis?
I started out when I think I was about 11 years old. I've got a relatively big family. I've got 3 brothers, and we had a family band, and I used to play music, and I studied music theory. So from a very young age, I was making music and just getting involved with a lot of artists around about my area in West London. And I think when I was about 17 years old, I met a girl called Sinead Harnett. I was working with a friend in the studio, just writing some songs. And at the time, I was offered a publishing deal via Ministry of Sound, and I was sort of trying to work out whether or not I should do it. And we had this really amazing opportunity where we wrote this song with 2 people, and then it was sort of like pretty much set to go for Jennifer Hudson. And then something terrible happened to her family, and then they scrapped the whole thing, and I literally freaked out. And I was like, this is crazy, I can't believe it. I was like, this guy's. And then through Sinead, I was just introduced to various people, and I graduated uni because I was at uni at the same time. And then Warner basically applied for a job at Warner, and they told me to jump on. I was devastated. And via my sort of playing music and making music, I worked at a TV advertising agency. So they paid me a relatively enough amount of money to then allow me to then work at Warner. Warner 6 months later called me up and said, we think it'd be quite good. So went to Warner's, did the interview, got the job, and I was an intern for 3 months without getting paid a penny. So saved up all this money, and then after that they offered me a full-time job. And I was there for about 11 months, brought in several artists, didn't want to sign any of them, and I was really like annoyed and devastated. And then I spoke to the chairman at the time, and he was like, just do what's right for you. Virgin offered me a job, and I moved, and I've been at Virgin ever since. Very fun.
Who do you work with at Virgin? Like, kind of like, so you didn't have to choose your argument?
Sort of, not really. I mean, I work closely with Nick Burgess, who's the head of A&R. He's got offered me a job there, and the first act I actually brought in when I got there was a band called Churches from Scotland, and I walked in and I was like, second meeting, I was like, this is the one, I want to do this, and everyone's still like, are you sure about that? So that took a while, it took 6 months to get done, and I did that, and then it's been a steady process actually. So Bleeding Heart Pigeons, I remember a certain phone call from a certain gentleman, and then it all sort of spiraled, and then that deal was done, and the band was just like recording, and then signed, trying to work out. Then they had a bit of a quiet period actually, didn't really sign a lot, and then I think signed quite a lot towards the end of last year. A guy called Astronomy did that, a good gentleman called Josh Record as well. Also worked with a band called Circle Waves, and a band called Waltz, but you know, it's early days to put out some more music, but having a good time, enjoying it.
Excellent, thank you very much. Willie, what's been your route into music?
I've been a barrister since 2005, specialised in the area of intellectual property law, which brings copyright into it. Through various banding disputes down in the High Court, started working with a lot of different acts, started advising them then on any deals that came in. And so over the course of the years, I worked with the Coronas, Hosier, Walking on Cars, various acts like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because what you've done is you've established a really good base for yourself here in Ireland, dealing with bands in Ireland, for getting kind of deals. Before you were before you were giving this advice to these bands, and it sounds to me that it started kind of casually more than anything else. What was the infrastructure like for bands here? Was there someone like you here, or like was it the case that when bands were in offer deals, the legal expert advice was only available in London?
Well, I mean, I don't know was it just available in London, but I think the trend before me and one or two others was that most of the acts, if they got an offer, had UK management and UK management advised to go with a UK firm of solicitors or whatever. So I think in the last number of years, I've been lucky enough to start working with the acts before they got signed and got my name out there, particularly with the Coronas, because as they got bigger and bigger, people kind of know what the camp is. So when acts were looking for to do a management contract or do their band agreement, whatever, they knew there was someone in Ireland to do it rather than not doing it, because going to England can be quite expensive. And then I think, as it grows, I've been doing it since 2005, so every year you get more and more known, you pick up a few more acts and they're chatting to their mates and whatever.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of
Have you negotiated deals with all the vendors?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you reckon basically that that the number of bands being signed here is going to continue, that's going to increase?
I don't know if it's going to continue. I think this past 12 months has been exceptional. We've done 10 or 15 deals to majors and maybe another 10 or 15 licenses and various different deals with other type of labels. If the acts are good and the songs are good, the deals are out there to be done. It's not like before you might have had a great act, but there wasn't as many deals being done. Whereas now I think the guys the different labels are signing more, and there's more money seems to be in the industry in general. So, and Ireland just seems to have a couple of great acts at the moment.
Okay, Eve, what's been your route to Kobalt? And maybe talking about Kobalt. I know the Kobalt is a label service, so it's like you look after your labels. Maybe talk a bit about your background.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm from Edinburgh. I moved to London, I think 6 years ago, when I was sort of 16, 17. Went to uni, did music production, then sort of did a course in music business. And then from then I kind of realised like A&R was what I wanted to get into. So I started doing some scouting, and I met someone who worked at Fierce Panda Records, like an indie label that does like a lot of indie rock stuff, which was cool. So I did a bit of scouting there, did some work experience at Rough Trade Records, and through that met the guys that work in like Beggars and Excel, and used to do some scouting there, but just really informally, not like a paid job. And then my last year at uni, I started working for Kobalt, and I work with the label services, but mainly on the publishing side as well. So I kind of scout for both, but it's mainly the publishing that I scout for. So I worked there part-time my last year at uni, and then when I finished uni, I started full-time.
Okay.
So that was July last year? Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what labels does Kobalt look after now?
And they have a bunch of labels. They do a lot of stuff with, it's mainly like self-release with artists, but I'm not so much on that side, I'm more on like the publishing side.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of publishing companies that we sub-publish, so like Polar Patrol, it's Snow Patrol's publishing company, and Communion, so that's like the Mumford and Sons guys and the publishing company that goes through Kobalt. Who else at the moment? We're sort of talking to a few different smaller publishing companies that want to do an administration deal through Kobalt. So
Okay, excellent.
yeah, it's good.
Right, okay, so you hear from that, like, I mean, there's a kind of very deep and wide variety of experience, and they also, like, all four panels represent kind of very kind of like individual traits of music business as currently stands. So I suppose, let's start with kind of this first general question, Mark, with you. Like, how, like, as someone who's been in business quite some time, you know, and given what Willie's been saying about like the amount of deals coming out of Ireland the last while, like, do you think, you know, this is that it's particularly noteworthy that so many deals have happened recently? And what would you put that down to?
Can you hear me? It's just the quality of what Willie said. There's some great bands. And when I first moved over, I just thought there was going to be loads of amazing bands to go and see, and loads of amazing bands I was going to be seeing. But I have to say, the first couple of years here, even 3 years here, it was really disappointing. I thought it just wasn't there. But the last couple of years, I think, yeah, it's just, I don't know whether there's a few. I think De Laurentiis in their interview in Hot Press kind of putting it down to the fact that you know, we've gone through a really tough time here, and people have been indoors and listening to music and playing music and writing music. Maybe that's got something to do with it, I don't know. But just yeah, all of a sudden it's incredible. It's whether it's bands, new artists that have come along like HWCH, or it's bands like the Coronas and De Laurentiis who've been around for a while, like Whiptide Movement even, who suddenly made amazing records and they've got huge potential. So yeah.
Would you think as well that, like, has the fact that so many labels now coming over here, there's been so many deals done out here, has that had an effect on the band as well? I mean, is this something that, I mean, Willie as well, I think, from talking to the band, are they cognizant of this fact? And is it having an effect on them, or is it having an effect on the people around them? The people kind of more
I think so. I mean, I have to say, more people are coming to us now. When we meet them, they've got a plan, they've done loads of stuff, and there's something going on. And you know, I think the days of people will just send me. You know, if I get a handwritten CDR with a note saying I'm great, you should sign this, that goes straight in the bin. It's just, that's the days of that are done. So I think, yeah, the people are coming with a real plan. And I did one of the speed dating things here yesterday. Saw some of you that I talked to yesterday, and it was incredible. It's really good to hear people coming in with a plan. This is what I've done over the last year and a half. This is where I want to go. And so I think that's happening. People are now seeing people getting signed and they're getting a plan. And it's great.
Yeah, I think a lot of the acts are getting confidence as well to see deals being done, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. You know, that if you do what you love, in particular with HWCH, who isn't mainstream sound, you know, he did what he wanted and got a deal. Yeah. So I mean, bands are not scared to be in the studio doing what they love, creating an EP now, and then have the confidence to shop it around the different labels. You know, whether it starts with Mark or something like Ruby Works, whatever, it works its way across to London or New York. But I mean, I think the fact that deals are being done, and there's Irish deals being done, I think a lot of the kids in studios or garages or whatever have now said, no, let's work a bit harder because there's an opportunity here. Let's stick with it.
Yeah, it's very easy what Mark kind of said. So I told him online earlier on, he said that 3 years ago when he did the speed sessions here, when he hosted the speed sessions here, it was noteworthy that the fans didn't have a clue. Just were useless, absolutely idiots. You know, he didn't use it. He didn't use it. They danced with this kind of thing. Whereas now, fans know exactly what's going on. They're coming in. They know exactly what they're talking about. They know exactly what the plan is. I mean, that's just a kind of back to the side. It sounds like Markel and he, like from your point of view, being headquartered in London, looking at the kind of the greater picture. What changes have you noticed in the last 18 months in terms of deals being done and the bands that are being done?
For me, on the record side, I think one of the most things that I would like seeing from a lot of different acts around the world, not just like in Ireland, but it seems to me people are reverting back to the way things were. As in, I was just explaining earlier on this morning, you know, early on people weren't buying albums, they were buying singles, and they were going out and touring. And it's only that when the Beatles came out, the album became a thing that you thought, oh my god, my seventh body of work. Prior to that, people were just buying singles because that's how, you know, people consume music. And you know, people also were doing a lot more touring before they even came in on a record label. And I think that's the best, the healthiest way to do a deal. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where you put one song, you release one song online, and everyone's like, this is amazing, it's great. And then you get signed for lots of money, and then there's the pressure of, you know, for the label to deliver a #1 single and a #1 album, and inevitably if you haven't done the work, you'll be putting music out into a vacuum without any fan base, and you sort of like just putting stuff out and hoping for the best. And I think you almost have to approach a release as like going to war, and in war, hope is not a good strategy, you need a plan. And that's why I think people actually doing shows, building up a fan base, engaging with the audience, almost like how Ed Sheeran done it, and then it will come to a point, a tipping point, where you write that one arresting song and then it just flies. It's like with Bastille, when they were signed, they were doing 500, 600 cap venues. They didn't have Pompeii at the time, and everyone was like, oh, I don't mind Bastille, they're all right, it's just a band. And then that song came out, and then he literally overnight just put that out.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think something that I've noticed has been a big change is bands and artists and producers are kind of realising that labels and publishers need them just as much as they need them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think to do with like the fact that you can build your own fan base, you can self-release your own music, you can access fans wherever they are in the world thanks to like the internet and social media. And that wasn't always the case, I guess. You had to have a support network behind you that was pushing your music out so that lots of people could access it. I think that's great. It seems like there's more control with the people who are creating music. It's not just about having to sort of plug into the bigger machine to push out for you, which is good.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that change.
That's very easy to because when you said something similar when we talked back in August with our Shines article, you were kind of explaining a bit about the history of why bands, why labels are signing acts again. Maybe you can kind of talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the labels went through a bad patch. Markel hopefully backed me up on this one. I mean, illegal downloading was rampant. EMI was going through a very, very bad patch with different owners, and there wasn't certainty within the labels, particularly in the UK, where EMI was in free fall. All revenues were down because of illegal downloading. But I think over the past, maybe since the last 3 years or so, with Spotify kind of making up the gap in lost revenue, the EMI situation now being resolved, and it's been brought in under the universal umbrella, that people now are going, okay, I'm not going to lose my job in the next 6 months. I can actually start looking at music now rather than worrying about my job. And I think that's been one of the big features in definitely in the last 3 years, and particularly in the last 2 years since EMI. People are definitely now going, okay, I don't have to worry about my job, I've got another 3-year contract, another 5-year contract, I can go out and sign a bunch of acts and work on it, which wasn't happening 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I worked during that EMI transition, and I remember we used to try and sign artists, and certain lawyers will basically look at the deal offers that come in, and they'll look at EMI and they'll be like, oh, that's nice, put it to one side and say, anyway, they just didn't want to deal with EMI. I think now it's slightly different now. I think there's a lot more confidence in the label.
Yeah, I mean, revenues weren't in free fall. There was sales was completely month after month down. So it was impossible for the labels to start planning anything, like any budgets going forward. But once things kind of have petered out and they're at a kind of constant level and they're on the way back, it seems to be on the way back up now, that the head guys can say, okay, we can now spend X next year on an A&R budget, we can take a risk signing maybe 2 or 3 more acts than we did last year. And therefore, with more money being spent, more acts are being signed. It's a supply and demand scenario.
In terms of acts being signed, I mean, this is for all of us, like, is there an optimal time? I mean, like we say something like, we talked earlier on about, I mentioned leaving our patients, they're a band, not many people in Ireland know about Even Still, right? Like, actually, I remember having a conversation with a Vinnie Booker in Limerick, which is the nearest city to their place. Like, he said, who's your favourite Irish band? And I was like, Bleeding Heart Patients. He said, who? I was going, dude, they're just out the road. So they're a band with very low profile. But there's an awful lot of bands as well, you talk about churches who are getting signed with a higher profile. So is there an optimal time for a band to be signed? Or do you, like, we listen for like the scouts on the panel, is there an optimal time for a band to be signed? Or does it matter? As long as you've got a belief in it and you can sell it to your bosses?
Yeah, it doesn't, I don't know about Markel, but for me it doesn't really seem to matter about timing. So there's a couple of bands I work on, a band called Pride, so I signed to Ireland for records. We signed them after they'd done their record deals. So they were kind of a bit more further on in their career. They gig loads, they had sort of like management in place, agent in place, press, all that kind of thing, and then we did their publishing. And complete opposite of that is an artist I worked with called Grace Lamar, who was only recently got a manager, and we signed her a year ago, or like just over a year ago.
Yeah.
So we signed her with no manager, she never played live before. We just heard a few demos and my boss was like, this is amazing, we should definitely work with her. So it kind of, it varies, which I think is great. It doesn't have to sort of be, you have to be at a certain level, or it has to be really early. It can kind of be either.
I think just to offer a contrast to that view, if I worked in publishing, I would sign way more than I'm allowed to do with records, just because I think record labels, and I'm speaking for every single label, like to sell this romantic notion that they say, as long as you walk in there with a great song, we'll sign you. The reality is, and obviously indies are slightly different because their business model is not as restrictive as the majors, because don't get me wrong, the indies are good at certain things and majors are good at certain things. But I think if you really want to succeed on a major label, you have to be at a certain level, whether that's touring, whether that's the amount of songs you've done, because they will sign you and they will need to release your album at some point. They can't sign you, and unfortunately for major labels, we get rolled over, we sign people for way too much money, I think. But they'll sign you for a considerable amount of money, and they have to factor that in, because it is a business at the end of the day, as well as it being a creative industry. It's a business. When you sign someone for nearly £250,000, which is a lot of money, they then have to think about, okay, so we're going to put your record out in the next 18 months, in the next 6 months, whatever it is. But it's always like, it's a classic fight between A&R and the rest of the label, because we're like, it's not ready, it's not coming out. And they're like, hold on a minute, we just made shitloads of money, it's got to come out. So then the pressure then reverts back to us. We can't sign someone if it's too early, even if they're incredibly talented, you just like, you have to sit tight and wait until they come to a point where you know if you sign them, you can put the album out hopefully within the next year. Because what you don't want to do is to sign something you really love and then it all goes wrong because you're forced to put a record out when it's not ready yet. So yeah, it's tricky for majors, but I think if you're up to a certain point, it's the best place to sign.
In terms of Universal Ireland, then, Mark, I mean, like you've signed some acts in the last while. Something like, say, like, I mean, the Good Private Movement and Dead Rentals. Are they signed? Like, are they Ireland only deals, or are they kind of like, are they signed to Universal as a whole?
No, they're signed. So they're signed. Yeah, they're signed for the world. We've got Riptide released in Germany and the UK and Australia.
Yeah.
So and it was very positive feedback on De Lorenzo's from the American labels as well. So yeah, so no, they're signed for the world. We only sign acts for the world. And yeah, that's why it's. You can make money here, but it's tough, as in artist and record company. Probably easier for an artist because there's a good healthy tour it makes it. So I'm certainly looking, anything we're signing is we've got the ambition for it to sell outside. Maybe the act to have the ambition and the songs to sell outside of Ireland. So yeah, so definitely for the world.
I mean, a lot, like in terms of kind of like being acts that you were signing, actually looking at from Ireland. I mean, like we say, like something like Rick and Wounds, like very commercial. You know, like there's one song there, but yeah, I can't remember. I was heard it really so often. It's really, really strong. De Lorenzo have a proven track record of signing those kind of things. So it's like you're looking at signing acts to like increase your market share more than anything else.
Not market share really. I don't really care about market share, to be honest. I love the real pleasure I get is seeing whether it's an artist signed to us or a new artist from these guys give us from the UK labels, the American labels. The main reason I do this job is I love seeing an act playing to 50 people, and then a year, 2 years time, you're seeing them, touring the world. It's a real pleasure to see Hosier, what he's done. Seeing him playing so many small venues now, and to see where he's going. That's very quickly. That's a very extreme example. But it's great, that's what I do. So I just want to sign acts I think can be successful globally, and we're at a huge disadvantage here because obviously we're so close to the UK. So as soon as anything gets any heat here, these guys roll over it, and I get blown out of the water. But so we do manage to get the odd one.
One thing the three scouts haven't mentioned, but there's been kind of an oblique reference to it, is like the importance of a team around an act. You know what I mean? That the manager, that's maybe like being an agent, that's maybe like someone like Willie coming in as well to like do the contract and make sure that Markel is paying more for his bands than he wants to pay. So it's like, let's talk a little bit like from the scout's point of view. What constitutes a good team?
I wouldn't like to say.
Just like, for example, it doesn't have to be an established manager. It doesn't have to be someone in the current establishment that you're used to dealing with.
I was about to say, I wouldn't like to say an experienced manager. I just think you need a level-headed and a person who's willing to listen. because ultimately what you find is that we're all in this together. Like the reason why we're trying to sign someone because we think they're going to be successful and we love what they do. I mean there are people out there who sign things they don't like, but on the whole, people sign things that they like and they want this artist to succeed. So if you have an agent, a manager, the lawyer, everyone involved wants sort of singing off the same hymn sheet, then you're going to be successful. If you have the manager fighting the label, the artist slagging off the lawyer, it just starts to become negative. But I think if everyone basically aiming for the right thing, then you'll be good.
I guess you want everyone that's involved for the right reasons. I think it's great when you see a team that it might not even be people that are necessarily established, just a bunch of friends that are maybe someone's managing, someone's helping out like online, and it's just about, I guess, having support around an artist, not necessarily about how established they are.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Willie, I want to throw this question, you know, I hope you won't mind me using it as an example. I mean, like, Markel there talked about, like, someone who's kind of a manager who's established in the way, level-headed and all that, and we know it's a bit of confidence. They deal with the coronas. I'm not saying Jim isn't confident, but Jim's been in the band a long time. When Jim started out managing that band, he was just one of their mates. So, like, how important, like, has it been for him to kind of, I suppose, you know, establish his own feelings all the way along? And maybe talk a little bit about what it takes for someone like Jim Rose to establish himself as a manager, that they can do the deal 5-6 years down the road.
Yeah, I think the Coronas are 3 albums in, just signed to records for this new album, but I mean, Jim, when he started off, you know, I think he was in school with the guys, and like many acts starting off, you know, it's a brother who ends up managing, or a dad, or a friend, or the guy who couldn't play guitar, or whatever, you know. And in the majority of cases, that just ends in disaster because the person doesn't know what they're doing. And I always say to acts, you know, you only need a manager when you can't do it yourself. I mean, it gets too busy to book gigs or whatever. But I mean, in terms of, you know, do labels worry if the manager's incompetent? You know, as the lawyer, do they say, well, you know, you really should be trying to get a new manager in there or get someone more established? I mean, Jim grew into that role brilliantly. You know, I mean, he was effectively everything to the lads at the start, and then the team built around him. So I mean, I think if a manager has to be able to let go a little bit as well, he's got to be able to make sure that at the right stage that, you know, a tour manager is brought in, or a lawyer is brought in, or an accountant is brought in, or whatever, that they don't try to do it all themselves, and have somebody to cop on, as Markel was saying, common sense is a huge scenario. I mean, you can't have an act that are maybe filling out wheelings, and next thing your manager is sending CDRs to all the UK labels going, my band's going to be the next biggest thing, because it's all about the timing. You know, you only get one chance to get the attention of these guys. I mean, otherwise they'll see the name, go, that was rubbish, we saw it, or we heard it was terrible. And it gets harder for a second bite or a second chance. So it's about, you know, it's like any job. Who's good to do any job? But I mean, if some guy has common sense, is not a pisshead, effectively, in many ways, and they're willing to work hard. I mean, you use Jim as an example, he looks after the Coronas. I mean, the amount of hours he's put into that act, I mean, you wouldn't do it for an hourly wage, because, you know, at the start it wouldn't have made sense. Just wouldn't have. I mean, because he was working around the clock. But he is the exception to the rule. I mean, of someone that I started working with a while ago, and we've come up through the ranks, but most managers that come in at that level, you find that eventually they'll be found out, and the band will get frustrated, and that causes tension in the camp. You know, why aren't we playing more gigs in the UK? Why aren't we getting a deal? And the manager doesn't have the answer, you know. But, you know, it works out. It can work out. Jim is a perfect example, but I would say the majority of cases, bad management.
A good example is Adam Tupper, who managed Keane when was at Arnold we signed Keane, and Adam was a mate of the band, but he was willing to learn. He would admit, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me? He'd work with us, and Adam went on to be an amazing manager, a very bright guy with Keane. Then his next act was Mumford & Sons, and he also manages Lord Marley now, and is one of the best managers around. But he with Keane, he was starting from as a mate of the band, but he learned, he dealt with the agents and learned from the agents and lawyers and local companies.
I mean, I think any good manager that I work with, whether it's UK or Irish managers, the most important thing is that they're willing to listen to people around them and bring in the expertise at the time, whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, an agent to book gigs. I mean, the managers there works for the act. A lot of managers think that the act is working for them, and, you know, that they're 20% in. But the most important thing for an act to remember and a manager is that everybody, whether it's the lawyer, the label, everyone's working for the act. You know, so when that line starts getting blurred, then you have difficulty. But if you any manager to be good, you don't even have to know about it at the start. It's just all about common sense that, you know, if you need to do more gigs, well then go and get an agent. You know, if you're getting contracts in, or you need to do a management contract, or you need, there's a publishing offer in, or there's a record deal offer, get a lawyer. You know, it's just common sense. It's not, you know, but the amount of times that that's not done, it's incredible. I mean, the amount of times I've been brought into cases or into acts trying to get out of a bad management deal or a bad production deal. The manager said, "Oh, we need to do this to get syncs or something." You know, it's, you know, I mean, I think, I don't know, I won't put it any further than that really. That, you know, a lot of it is just common sense.
Well, okay, back to kind of, I suppose, the team of the panel, the scouting. You know, have your filters as scouts changed in terms of how you find out about the acts? Are you finding that you're getting more tips or listening more keenly to managers and lawyers like Willie than maybe the case years ago? I mean, I know in terms of kind of like, you know, also talk a little bit maybe Markel and Eve about like how much technology has changed about things. I remember being in a major label last year, and someone I know quite well as a head of an office just talking about how they're now working. He put me into a room, there was 4 lads sitting on laptops, and they were following 1,000 people, checking out what they were on, and it was like what their music they were listening to, what bands they were tipping earlier on, and I was like, what? And they asked me my name, I said my name, and it's like, well, yeah, you're on that list there. So I want to kind of know about how it's changed, like the context you use, the filters you use, how they've changed in the last couple of years.
I reckon, well, in the last couple of years, I haven't seen a massive change, but I'd say there has been a big change in the way you sort of scout music. I'd say like 15 years ago, I guess, before having sort of the tip list, having Shazam, having like all the different social media platforms, you would maybe have to, say if I was in London and I came across a band in Glasgow, I'd have to drive up to Glasgow, see them, go to rehearsal space, like meet the band. But now you can kind of check out music online, see if there's any videos, find out quite a lot about a band without necessarily having to meet them. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I guess it's a good
well,
thing.
has it kind of, I mean, the initial introduction to the band changed? I mean, is it still,
Yeah.
is it still the same way that like contact tells you about this band in Edinburgh and you follow it up, or is it kind of like you found out via blog, via whatever?
It's mainly blogs. Would you agree, Markel? Is it mainly blogs or like word of mouth through?
Yeah, I mean,
Sort of like
I try to have a balanced approach to it, because sometimes when you see things online, it can be quite misleading, or it can sort of not really paint the full picture or something. You know, there's been instances where I see bands listen to online and I'm like, that's alright, and then you then go to the gig and you're like, oh my gosh, this is fucking amazing. Just because I think you get chemistry in a room when you meet someone, and you can just quickly work out whether or not they have it. But it's quite hard to work that out when you listen to something online. So you try to do both, but in terms of discovering new music, for me, I think when I first started, I was meeting every single person and their dog. But I think through doing that, you then sort of work out the 20 or 30 people who have similar musical taste to you, as opposed to, I think through doing that, you then sort of work out the 20 or 30 people who have similar musical taste to you, as opposed to, I think music is objective, so like you try to work out what you like, and then when those people send me tips, I usually thoroughly investigate it, because they become my trusted solicitor, so to speak. But I think discovering music for me is mostly online and speaking to my friends, and most importantly speaking to my little brother, because I think it's important to be aware of what the younger generation, because I think I'm quite young, but yeah. I listen to the other people as well.
Oh, you Mark, have you?
Yeah, no, it's a real mix of everything, but I think there is technology, YouTube and whatever has made it much easier to discover things and to get through more. I mean, you look at the amount of bands that have been on these 3 days. It's impossible to get around all those. There's far less people working in Red Room Street these days because time's been hard. We've got no one dedicated A&R person at Universal, so it's kind of, we all like in a bit. So if you can, I look daily at iTunes and YouTube and Shazam. I'm obsessed by Shazam at the moment. I mean, this is a really good example of technology. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, the president of one of our American labels emailed me and said, Mark, can you tell me about this band, the Riptide Movement? I see it's number 4 in the Shazam chart in Ireland. I was like, Jesus Christ, the president of one of the A&R guys in one of our American labels is looking at the Irish Shazam chart. So, that's a kind of extreme example of it is a way of getting music heard, and it makes it easier to discover more stuff.
Yeah, I think just to Shazam, I think Shazam is amazing, because it's sort of the unadulterated version of what the public are into, and you can't engineer it whatsoever. I mean, people try, but you can't, because ultimately, when you hear a song that you love, you quickly try to discover where it is, and I recommend every single artist who's in here to register your songs in Shazam.
That's one most important thing. Anyway.
Absolutely. Like, it's so important because you can write that song, and the thing is, people don't know when they're writing that song, because if you all did, we would be lying on the beach in Branson's Island saying how great we are. But my point is, you don't know when you're doing it, but other people know when they hear it. And I think make it easier for other people by putting on Shazam, because we look at it, because it's just telling you what people are liking. Doesn't mean you have to sign it, but
I think, I mean, the dangers of the internet and social media, though, is if you have something up there that's not up to scratch, it's so easy, you know, for Eve or Markel or Mark just to go online, see something, and if it's not truly reflective of where you are at the time, you know, so I mean, I know that acts are always, getting a video up for an EP or, you know, putting stuff up. I mean, it's great and it's good having it up there. I mean, walking on cars, I mean, people have does YouTube clips last year. Yeah. Effectively, we did that deal in the figures that were behind it. But I mean, if those clips weren't great and the songs were crap, or you know, the band didn't look right, or whatever, you know, it can have the opposite effect in that, you know, Markel can go on and have a look at it, go, it's not great, doesn't sound great, and move on. So I mean, there is that danger. As great as technology is, and like Shazam and whatever, I mean, there is the other edge of the sword as well, which can be devastating for a band, and it's hard to come back from. If you put up a terrible video or something that's not mixed right, or live footage that's, you know, that you put up, I mean, anyone can put up something with an iPhone, and I think the labels will reflect that. But if you, as a band, put up a video that's crap or a mix that's crap, it's hard to come back from that, really.
I think the limited kind of like availability stuff really works. When you look at a band like Jack Denner, for a long time there was just one YouTube clip available. Nothing on SoundCloud, nothing on Bandcamp, nothing on Facebook, one YouTube clip. So if he wants to know more about the band, come and see it. Okay, that's really good. I'm kind of aware we're going to press the time because we have another panel at 4 o'clock. We need to change our rooms. So I'm just going to try and ask the floor for other questions. So if you've got a question for any panel, just put your hand up and shout.
My question is for Mark. The signings that we were discussing were Data Rentals and Riptide with both of them had a long history and built up a fan base over time. Are Universal speculating, taking risks on artists?
Yeah, we are as well.
Just throwing a demo and they don't have a fan base whatsoever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think because of everything you've been hearing here, I think there are less deals done. We don't do as many deals as these guys do, but so I'm just, if I've gone wrong, correct me, but I don't think those deals on total gut feeling happen that often anymore because there is so much science out there. You could quite say it's lazy A&R. I think it's just good you can make a more educated guess. So yeah, we still absolutely will take risks. And we signed a guy from Derry called Rainy Boy Sleep, and we are starting from zero. Rainy Boy Sleep. So you know, like, nobody's heard of him. We're starting from scratch, but I think it's fucking amazing.
What's his name? Sorry.
Rainy Boy Sleep.
Oh yeah.
So that's one we have taken a risk on, but especially for a label like us, we're only a small label. We have a very limited A&R budget. I can't afford to make many mistakes before my boss is knocking on my door. So the ones you can make a more educated guess, like Riptide Movement or the De Laurentiis, because they have a history, but they now make great records. They're less risky ones, but if I think somebody's good enough, we'll absolutely take the risk. Yeah, but like I said, most of the good ones that come along, these guys are on the case very, very quickly.
What was the process then with this unknown artist? Did you give it a CD or?
I've always loved this. One of the first bands I came to see when I went to see when I moved here.
Do you mean Rainy Boy Sleep or
Rainy Boy Sleep?
Oh, it was he's managed by a guy called John McIver, who's an agent who's been around for ages, who I knew. He came to talk to me about the artist and played me some music. He personally put a lot of money into making the record himself, which I was just really impressed by his dedication and his enthusiasm. And then he played me the record and I loved it, and that was that. So, and now, but like, we're starting, we've been going for 6 months now, and we're at 60 in the Airplay chart here on Monday, which that doesn't sound, that's real progress. So, and we're starting to get a real thing going. We just put a little remix out that's getting some real traction. So we're getting somewhere now. But for the last 6 months it's been really tough going, but I'm feeling better about that now. So that's how that one came about. I was going, yeah, there's just got an agent like you from the past.
Cool. Next question. Yeah.
Is there any artists or acts that you're working with at the moment that you're really excited about?
I'm excited about every single one of them. There's several. I mean, for example, just touching on the point of signing things live without anything going on. There was a band that came around last year, and they put one song up online. I heard it, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. It wasn't really a band at the time. It was a guy in Liverpool writing songs in his parents' living room, and I just emailed him and said, "You got any more?" And he sent 4 other songs, and I was like, "Okay, I'm coming there tomorrow." And he was like, "I don't have a manager." I was like, "Great." So I don't have a lawyer. I was like, "Great." And you're like, "Shit, okay, what do you do?" And then you eventually got a manager, got a lawyer, and we signed them, and it's a band called Circle Waves. They didn't have a single fan when we started, but now, they are about to sell out Manchester, that's 600, 700 tickets, about to sell out London, that's about nearly 1,000 tickets in just the space of a year, but that was just purely down to the strength of the songs. I don't think I would have done it if I felt the songs were okay or just good. But yeah, I'm really excited about them. I think they're going to be good.
Yeah, there's a band I work with called Prize, and they're quite an interesting story. They kind of went through the major label system. They were signed to Ireland, I think, like 7 years ago. They were first signed as a different artist, a different band. And the label didn't really feel like they were doing the right sort of stuff. They didn't love it. There wasn't that sort of support there. So they were kind of shelved for a bit. And then they went away, wrote loads of songs, and basically came back and were like, "We've been writing these songs," presented them to the label, and suddenly they were like the priority. So they didn't have publishing at that time, so we signed them for publishing, and now they're priority with Ireland, and they're doing exciting stuff. So yeah, it's good. It's cool.
Do you think what Markel said is right? Everything you sign, you sign because you're excited about, and it's if you read any different, it's not the case. It's if you sign an artist, you owe the service to do everything in your power to make them successful. I don't think anybody would sign an artist unless they were excited about it. So
I think in terms of being excited, in terms of signing stuff, I think Hosier is going to have a ridiculous 2050. I think anything's possible, so that's exciting to be involved in. In terms of on-sign stuff, I think the Irish scene is still really, really healthy. I know you and I discussed Leaders of Men, I think are something that's really worth looking forward to for 2015, see where they can end up. And Markel's about to release the Coronas album, which we're all excited about. So I think there's loads to be excited about.
I have a question about scouting. Just before we go, just a quick question. At an event like something like Hard Rock Years or CMJ, do you go randomly to gigs, or do you think it's a bit waste of time? Do you randomly walk into a venue and check out a band at total and respect? I mean this, you know nothing about the band. Is that a complete waste of your time?
Usually go after working out what your plan is, but if you have gaps, because you have gaps between gigs.
Have you found a good band that way? Or an interesting band?
I can't say I have.
I have. I once went to the wrong venue to see a band. And I turned up and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the band I went to see." And they didn't look like their pictures, but I was like, "Oh, that's cool, I'll stick it out." And they were great, and I can't talk about it right now because we're not definitely signing them, but yeah, hopefully that's something we'll be working with. And yeah, it was just a complete fluke. I didn't need to go see them, but I did, and they were great. So
cool. I think that happens with support slots sometimes. If you arrive early, you see it's a great support act, you didn't even realise they're on the bill, or you had the crew with the work. That's happened a few times. Strolling around the different venues this weekend, there's been some stuff I hadn't even a clue that the band existed, even though they're Irish. They go, "That's quite interesting."
Cool. Got time for one last question.
Will, obviously you're a music lawyer, so you're approached by bands or other artists to try and negotiate a deal. But do you find now, because of your recent successes, that you're becoming an A&R as well, and that means you have, at what point basically would you get involved with artists? Is it only to negotiate a deal, or you start working with artists when they're...
I think it's a combo, really. Some acts come to me, they've been offered a deal and you fall in at that stage to work it out. Then some other acts, it's like, if managers you're working with already are working with a new act, you get on early and then, you pick up the phone to the label and say, "I think this act is worth working with or whatever, you know. So there's a combo, you know, and then sometimes there's acts that I see myself and I go, oh, they're amazing. Like, it was probably this time last year that I was walking on cars at Mark that I saw them and I was like, did this band are amazing. So I kind of got myself into the project rather than waiting for the other way around. But it can work various different ways, you know. Sometimes you get brought in to do a management contract and the band are amazing, you want to stay more involved. Sometimes you want to run for the hills. it just, you know, it depends really, you know. Depends on the act. I mean, sometimes acts are so great that momentum just builds up. I mean, the Hosier thing just exploded last year, you know. And then there's other acts that it's a slower process. I mean, it's the Corona's 4th album that's coming out this year, and I've been working with them for most of that time, and you know, and there was never a stage where, you know, we'd rush into the record label. We said, okay, let's build it, you know, and it's exciting. I mean, been on Island Records. It's going to be the first time they're released on a major. Mark has them here for Ireland, and it's exciting. You know, and then there's other little acts and songwriters. I mean, it doesn't have to be bands. I mean, there's songwriters you can work with for publishing and put them with other acts that you look after as well. So it's kind of a combo. You know, sorry if that's a bit of a waffling answer.
Yeah. But just like to say, big round of applause, a big thanks to the panel, to Mark, to Markel, to Willie and to you. Thank you all very much.